Love China, hate China, or just curious about China? This is the Chinese business arena. And today, we're going to discuss the fallacy of our collective myopia in the post-COVID-19 era of doing business in China. We're going to review the real culprits that cause communications breaking down with our Chinese counterparts, and I'm going to show you how to operate this. This is the Guanxi engine. This is the best metaphor for explaining how China works and why traditional solutions for improving our cross-cultural communications with Chinese people often leave us frustrated, especially with the results. But first, what are the traditional approaches? The first suggestion is usually to learn to speak Mandarin, meaning that language and reducing language barriers is the key to success. Now, this assumes that both sides want the same outcome with the same sense of urgency, and understanding the words we want to express to each other will lead to greater alignment. But what if some things are lost in translation? Then, of course, are our value differences. It assumes that if we just find the proper incentives, then working together or leading your Chinese employees should work the same as it does in the West. Have you heard of the lack of loyalty and the high attrition rates of local Chinese employees? I wonder, has anyone cracked this enigma yet? The most common mention is probably culture. Every China expert talks about Chinese culture and our cultural differences. Now, this supposes that both sides have common objectives, but a poor understanding of different norms and customs leads to our frustrations working together. While this may be partially true, it's by no means the entire picture. Our Chinese counterparts want their cooperation with you to succeed as much, if not more, than you do. So, I believe the missing considerations for getting things done in China, or what I call the Chinese arena, are psychological and emotional. But instead of trying to teach you cultural psychology, I'm going to show you how things work in China with a simple metaphor, the Guanxi engine. We're going to decode this diagram and show you how to operate and maintain your Guanxi engine to drive success in China to lead you to greater outcomes or better outcomes. Like with any business venture, complex systems have many moving parts and operate most efficiently when properly maintained. The best metaphor for explaining this is to imagine a proverbial Guanxi engine that powers everything related to your endeavors in China. Many complexities in navigating the Chinese arena are psychological, but all practical outcomes revolve around the Chinese definition of relationships, also known as Guanxi. This also happens to be chapter 1 of my book, The Chinese Honeymoon Period, where we discuss Guanxi as how they operate. First, to keep your Guanxi engine running smoothly, it needs lubricant or lubrication. Face or 面子 is the lubricant that keeps everything running smoothly inside the Chinese arena. In Chinese culture, giving face is customary, even amongst close Guanxi connections, and a must for developing any new relationship intended to become beneficial, which is usually the only reason to get to know someone new in China. The pragmatic aspect of Chinese mentalities will naturally seek to give praise and other forms of goodwill to open doors to attain some type of benefit or favoritism in the future. And its pursuit is solely driven by customs and hierarchy. So, we shouldn't be surprised when our Chinese counterparts are dismissive towards lower level people, and we shouldn't misinterpret praise given during the honeymoon period. In Western culture, a quid pro quo may be unethical or illegal, but in Chinese culture, goodwill exchanges are its lifeblood. Goodwill is the proverbial fuel that keeps the Guanxi engine running. It demonstrates good faith or 诚意 in Chinese culture, which is the closest thing in our Western sense of developing trust. Now, Westerners tend to trust those we believe who are honest, generous, and hardworking, and Chinese people tend to only trust those with whom they have close Guanxi relationships with. That's the difference. All right. Most things in China work differently, and we are responsible for learning and adapting to how things actually work, and not how we think things should work. The rules of playing the China game inside the Chinese arena is called Guanxi, and it represents its national characteristics. Now, China has distinctive rules and regulations, tariffs and tax structures, and a unique security architecture. And as with any new market, consultants and advisors will help us navigate this new terrain. However, they don't prevent the adverse effects of our emotional biases and our lapses in controlling them. We must adjust for the geopolitical undercurrents that disproportionately influence questions and assertions from our Chinese counterparts, which are likely to trigger a circular conversation and can cause psychological harm. Success is about winning or losing hearts and minds and becoming a pragmatic psychologist and discovering all the treasures that China has to offer. Now, finally, the Guanxi engine requires maintenance. Actually, it requires ongoing maintenance through the continuous exchange of goodwill, reciprocity, and engagement in social activities called 应酬. Remember that isolated gestures in China will not translate into measurable results. Instead, continuous engagement in Guanxi deepening activities elevates preferential treatment and the sharing of connections and inside information. Western cultures believe that everyone should be treated equally without preferential treatment, which is why doing business in China often feels dirty or unethical. We believe that business should be relational, yet we measure everything transactionally. In the Chinese arena, transactions vary depending on the relationships, and Chinese people are pragmatic and they don't hide their humanity. So, keeping your Guanxi engine running is actually pretty easy. Just keep it fueled and properly lubricated, and it will naturally lead you to greater success inside the Chinese arena. So now it's time for you to subscribe or follow to learn more about my upcoming book and becoming yourself a pragmatic psychologist. My upcoming book is called Strategic Pragmatism for De-risking Post-COVID China, Circumnavigating Cultural and Psychological Landmines Inside the Chinese Arena. See you soon.